name is Emma, aka Made in the Moment, and today I'm going to show you how I crochet this fun little mohair top. Mohair yarn is basically this fluffy yarn made from goat's fur, and if you're vegan and you don't like to use animal products, then you might want to find an acrylic alternative. I personally just source my mohair secondhand so that I am not getting it from the supply chain, basically. I'm actually working on a script for a video right now about how I find and buy secondhand yarn and kind of my tips and tricks on what to look for and what to avoid. So if you have any questions about that, then you can leave a comment below or send me a message about it, and I will try my best to address your question in the video. Mohair, like any other yarn, has different weights and thicknesses and kind of levels of fluffiness. So this is the first sample that I made, and it's very fluffy, kind of a thicker yarn, and this one is a little bit less fluffy and a little less thick, and it just kind of makes for a different look. If you don't have mohair, you can also use just cotton yarn. Here's an example of one of my followers who made this pattern but with cotton yarn. So you can totally do it, you just have to adjust the hook size that you're going to use. If you like this video and want to support my work or follow me further, you can follow me on Instagram and or TikTok. Those will be linked below. I post much more regularly on there than I do on YouTube. And if you want the written version of this pattern, it's on my Ko-fi. It's free, and all of my other patterns are also on there, so you can go check them out. They are always at a lower price on Ko-fi than they are on Etsy and Rippler, because Ko-fi does not take a fee out of my sales, and I want to be able to give you discounted patterns. Without further ado, let's get into the video. So you only need one measurement for this, and you need to measure around the widest part of your chest and measure a little bit loosely. So my measurement is 30 inches. And then for the front panel, you're going to divide that number by 2. So that's 15, and then add 1 inch just so there's a little bit of extra space. So I'm going to make a chain that is 16 inches long. So to do that, you have to start with a slip knot. So you're going to wrap the yarn around your fingers and pull through like this, and then slip the knot onto your hook and pull to tighten. You don't want it to be too tight. And then to chain, pull the yarn around your hook and then pull through. And just keep chaining. The first row will be double crochets. So we're going to go into the third chain from the hook. So here's the first one, 1, 2, 3. This is the one we're going to be crocheting into. And to double crochet, you're going to yarn over your hook, put the hook into the chain space, pull the yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2 of the loops on the hook, and then yarn over, pull through the other 2. So yarn over, insert, pull the yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And you're going to continue that all the way down the chain. When you get to the last stitch, you're going to make one more double crochet, and then you're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and then turn your work. And now we're going to be working in what is called the mesh stitch, or the mesh double crochet stitch. This chain 3 counts as a double crochet, and so does this stitch right here. So we're going to skip this stitch and double crochet into this one. So it looks like the third one again. So you're going to yarn over and then double crochet into that stitch and then chain 1. And then skip a stitch and double crochet into the next stitch. So you can see it's forming these little squares. So you're just going to do that all the way to the end of the row. Chain 1, skipping a stitch, double crochet into the next stitch, and then chain 1. When you get to the end of the row, you will either have 1 stitch left or 2 stitches left, depending on whether you had an even or an odd amount of stitches in your first row. So if you end up with just 1 stitch left, don't chain 1 after this double crochet and just put another double crochet right into the stitch. And if you end up with 2 left, then make a normal mesh stitch. So you would chain 1 and then put a double crochet in there. The reason that you should not do that if you only have 1 stitch is because you'll cause an increase, and then the side of the piece will kind of start to go like that. Once you're finished with that stitch, you're going to chain 2 and turn your work, and you're going to do another row of double crochets. It can be a little hard sometimes to find the spot to put your hook into when you're crocheting into the mesh stitch. But if you can see here, there's like a little piece of yarn underneath and then 2 pieces on top, which is where the stitch is. So you're going to want to go through that. So you have the 2 pieces of yarn with the stitch on top, and underneath you have this little piece. If that's too confusing for you, or you just don't want to do that, you can also just put a stitch right into the space, like that. It just kind of depends what you want the square to look like. I'll show you the difference. So it's very, very subtle, but this square is a little bit more defined, and this square is a little bit more kind of in the texture. It really doesn't matter which way you do it, it just kind of is based on preference. I'm going to keep going, just putting the stitch right into the space so that the squares are a little bit more defined. And just continue making double crochets all the way to the end of the row. So here's the end of the row. You're going to make 1 more double crochet into that chain 3 that we made at the beginning of the mesh row. And then you're going to chain 3 again, turn your work, and this time we're going to be doing 2 rows of treble crochets. So to make a treble crochet, you're going to yarn over just like you would for a double crochet, but then you're going to yarn over again. So you have 3 kind of loops on your hook, and then you will insert your hook and grab the yarn through just like a double crochet. And now we have 4 loops on our hook. Yarn over, pull through 2. Now we have 3. Yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over, pull through the last 2. So it's just like a double crochet, but it's taller. So yarn over 2 times, insert your hook, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. Insert, grab, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So you can see the double crochet compared to the treble crochet. It's basically just 1 yarn over, pull through 2 taller. So you're just going to continue all the way to the end of the row, making treble crochets. At the end of the row, you're going to chain 3, turn your work, and then make another row of treble crochets. Once you get to your second row of treble crochets, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. And then you're going to do a row of single crochets. So to make a single crochet, you're going to go into the stitch, grab the yarn, pull through, yarn over, and pull through both loops. So there's no yarn over before you make your stitch. And you're going to make single crochets all the way across the row. When you get to the end of the single crochet row, you're going to chain 2 and turn your work, and then make a row of double crochets. After this row, we're going to do a row of mesh stitch. So chain 3, turn your work, skip a stitch, and double crochet into the next one. Chain 1, skip a stitch, and double crochet. And once again, you're just going to do this all the way to the end of the row. Then you're going to chain 2, turn your work, and make a double crochet row. the end of this double crochet row, you're going to chain 2 and make another row of double crochets. In my written pattern, this is sort of where I stopped with the length of the body, and then I started adding on the straps, but I'm actually going to add a couple more rows of mesh and double crochet and just kind of show you the pattern that I use to lengthen it, just because I want this version to be a little bit longer. So at the end of my double crochet row, my second double crochet row, I'm going to chain 3 and do another mesh row. So basically from this point on, to increase the length, you're just going to repeat sort of this set of 3 rows. A double crochet row, a mesh row, and another double crochet row. So this is my first double crochet row, then I'm going to do a mesh row, and then a double crochet row. And here's the end of the mesh row. I'm going to chain 2 and turn my work, and then do a row of double crochets. So here's what my project looks like now with the extra rows added. It measures 7 inches, so it's still pretty cropped. So now before I add the sleeves, I'm going to do 3 rows of single crochets. So chain 1, turn your work, and then single crochet for 3 rows. Once you finish the 3 rows of single crochets, you're going to start working on the strap. So we're going to start with a double crochet row, chain 2, and then make 15 double crochets. Then we're going to do kind of a decrease row. So chain 2, turn your work, and then double crochet 10 across. And then you're going to make 2 more rows of double crochets that are 10 stitches wide. And then we're going to make a row of mesh double crochets. So chain 3, skip a stitch, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, from this point on, you're just going to keep making double crochets until the strap reaches kind of the top middle part of your shoulder. So you're going to have to hold this sort of up to your body to try it on. So for me, this was 3 rows of double crochets after the mesh row. So once you get it to the length that you like, you're going to cut your yarn. Just pull through like that. And then you're going to start on the other side. So to reattach my yarn, I always tie a little slip knot, just because I feel like that's really secure and then you're not worried about the project unraveling. So you're just going to insert your hook into this corner and make sure you're starting from the outside and going towards the center. So pull the knot through, and then you're going to chain 2. And I always like to crochet over this end just so you don't have to weave it in as much later on. And we're doing a row of double crochets, 15 double crochets. So that's 15 double crochets. And from this point on, you are just going to repeat the exact same steps that you did for the last strap. So I'll just put the pattern up on the screen of what rows to do. And once you're done with your 3 rows, or however many rows you need for it to be the height that you want, you're going to cut your yarn and pull through. And this is the whole front panel completed. And for the back panel, you're going to repeat the exact same thing. So if you added, you know, an extra 3 rows of double crochet mesh double crochet, then make sure to add that on the back as well. But you can kind of compare as you're working. So I'm going to make my back panel and then I'll come back and show you how to sew them together. So I'm finished with both sides now, the front and the back, and I'm going to show you how to connect the shoulders. You can either slip stitch these together or sew them. In the written pattern, it says to slip stitch them together, but I want to sew these together, so I'm going to show you how to do that. It doesn't really matter, just kind of whatever you're most comfortable with. So get your yarn needle and thread the little string that you already have attached, string of yarn. And you're going to insert your needle into kind of the front loop of this top stitch, and then the same loop on the other side. So if you were looking at this way, this would be the front loop. So you're going to go through that loop, and then coming back the other way, go through that front loop, and then the front loop on this side. And then just keep on going, kind of zigzagging back and forth. Until you get to the end of the row. And when you get to the end, I like to go through the last loop one more time and then kind of tie a knot. Just to secure it, and I always double knot because then it's even more secure. And this is what it looks like. So now you're going to do the same thing on the other side. Thread your needle. And then tie it off. And there you go. And because I hate weaving in the ends, I'm going to do that right now before I move on to the rest of the sewing. So for something like this where the structure is so like airy and light, it's kind of hard to hide your ends. So I think you just have to weave them in kind of back and forth a little bit. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So this is like the corner, the edge stitch. So I just kind of go in this way, go down, oops. Go across, and then I'm gonna go up again, couple stitches, and then come back down over here. Just kind of the more directions that you weave it in, then the less likely it is to come out when the fabric stretches. See, that's pretty well hidden. I'm gonna show you how I do that with the other ones as well. So I'll kind of go down this way, across, back up, and maybe across this way, and down one more time. So I'm gonna weave in these last two ends and then I'll show you how to sew up the sides. And I'm going to connect the side parts, and I actually am going to slip stitch these just because I want to. To slip stitch the sides together, you're going to insert your hook into one side and then into the other. You can kind of see there's like almost like a stitch definition on the sides of the double crochets, and you're going to kind of be following that. So make a little slip knot and put it on your hook, and then pull the slip knot through both sides. So it should be connecting both sides at the bottom. And then chain one. You're going to insert your hook into basically the top of this double crochet right here, and then into the same spot on the other side. Then pull the yarn through as if you're going to do a single crochet, but instead of yarning over, you're going to just pull all the way through. Same thing here. This is right at the bottom of this double crochet, and then on the other side, you're going to insert your hook right into the bottom of that double crochet, yarn over, pull through, and pull all the way through. So with the way the rows in this work, it's actually really easy to line up where you should be stitching together, because you want to make sure that your mesh rows are kind of sitting on top of each other, the treble crochet rows are sitting together, and basically the bottom and the top are connecting in the same place. So just continue on like that until you get to this row right here. This was our 15 double crochet row on the strap. So you'll connect that and then be done. And make sure not to slip stitch too tightly, because then this line, instead of kind of lying flat, it sort of puckers inward. So you want to slip stitch somewhat loosely. You can always size up your hook if that is becoming a problem. So I'm using a 6mm hook right now, but If I was having problems crocheting loosely, then I might go up to a 7mm hook. And then when you get to the end, just chain 1 and cut your yarn. And here's what the seam looks like on the inside, and here's what it looks like on the outside. So it's a little bit thicker of a seam than when you sew it. That lays a little bit more flat. And then you're just going to repeat that on the other side, and then you're done.